Being a soldier is certainly not an easy job, and many of them end up putting their lives on the line in order to fight for what they believe in. From soldiers who died in battle, to soldiers who died from arrogance, and even to soldiers who passed away from natural causes. On today's top 10 list, I will be covering 10 more haunting last words heard by soldiers. Starting off this list, in our number 10 spot, we have Ira P Woodruff. Ira P Woodruff was a second lieutenant in the Confederate Army during the Civil War. He ended up passing away during the Battle of Seven Pines on May 31st of 1862. His last words during this battle weren't recorded, but what was recorded was one of his last letters to his family, which I think is a pretty great choice to remember some of his final words. Close to the end of the letter read, "When that dear land shall be polluted by the filthy tread of our enemies that are now waging an unjust war upon us, I hope that it will take place after my remains sleep in the lonesome grave of the soldier. If it should ever fall to my lot to face the instruments of death, where perhaps cannonballs may rain around me, I shall think of my own sweet friends that I have left behind me." It is always so haunting to hear the final words of somebody to their family, and it really just reminds you of the sacrifice some people have made. Before I dive into this one, guys, please don't forget to hit the thumbs up button if you're enjoying the video so far. In our number 9 spot today, we have Gregorio Del Pilar. Gregorio was a general of the Philippine Revolutionary Army during the Philippine-American War, and is known for being one of the youngest generals in the Revolutionary Army at the young age of just 22 years old. He was nicknamed Boy General and was also known for being quite a ladies' man. In 1896, Gregorio finished his Bachelor of Arts and was going on to complete more education, but when the revolution broke out, he enlisted himself for military service. In 1899, the Americans were advancing on the Tirad Pass, and this is the battle that unfortunately was Gregorio's last. While his last spoken words weren't recorded, it was his final diary entry that I want to talk about today. His final entry read, "The general has given me the pick of all the men that can be spared and ordered me to defend the pass. I realize what a terrible task has been given to me, and yet I felt that this is the most glorious moment of my life. What I do is done for my beloved country. No sacrifice can be too great." It obviously shows how incredibly dedicated he was to his country, and perhaps he had some sort of inkling that this battle just may be his last. At the end of the day, his legacy certainly lives on. In our number 8 spot today, we have Neil Tony Downs. Neil Downs was killed in Afghanistan on June 9th, 2007, while he was a part of the 1st Battalion Guards. His final words are coming from a letter that he had written to his girlfriend before his passing, and you guys, it is just absolutely heart-wrenching. He wrote, "Jane, I hope you have a wonderful and fulfilling life. Get married, have children, etc. I will love you forever and will see you again when you are old and wrinkly. I have told my parents to leave you some money out of my insurance, so have fun, babe. Okay, gonna go now, beautiful. Love you forever. Tony, XXX." Any letter left to family before someone passes is incredibly hard to read, but there is something that is just so terrifying and sad when those words reflect that they knew that the end was near. To end this one on a happier note, in the letter he also wrote about how he bets his lottery numbers will get picked now, which made me laugh through the tears I had the first time I was reading the letter. In our number 7 spot today, we have Henri de la Tour d'Auvergne. I'm so sorry to any French people watching this. Henri was a French general who has gone down in history as one of the greatest military commanders in modern history. During the Dutch War in the summer campaign in Salzburg on July 27th, 1675, Henri was struck by one of the first shots. I believe it was also a cannonball, so it was most definitely not a good scene. He laid on the ground, barely able to breathe when he uttered his last words, which were, "I did not mean to be killed today." Aside from that being very honest, it's also quite sad. I always like to picture people's final moments as peaceful or just hope that they have no idea what is happening, but this was of course not the case for him. After his passing, when his death was announced, people all over were mourning the loss as he was an incredibly well-respected man. In our number 6 spot today, we have Thomas Jonathan Jackson. General Thomas Jonathan Jackson is much better known by his nickname, Stonewall Jackson. He was a Confederate general during the American Civil War and is one of the most well-known commanders there has ever been, as he had had quite a significant role in winning a lot of the most famous battles. Now, in 2021, he certainly has a slightly controversial past, but we will save that for another video. After the Battle of Chancellorsville, Stonewall ended up being mistakenly shot in the left arm twice and once in the right hand. This led to his left arm being amputated, but the medical struggles did not end there. He ended up developing signs of pneumonia, but the doctors didn't catch the signs in time. On May 10th, 1863, just a short 8 days after he was shot, he ended up passing away from his pneumonia. Before he passed, his doctor recorded his last words. He was very weak, but he managed to utter the sweet words, "Let us cross the river and rest under the shade of the trees." This is not dark like the other ones on this list, but it sure is memorable. In our number 5 spot today, we have Maynard L Beamstirfur, whose nickname was Beamy. Beamy was a World War II hero who luckily went on to live a very long life after his duty was over. He ended up passing away at the age of 92, and really, who could be upset at making it that far in life, especially when you survived such a high-risk job? He passed away in 2016 and was thankfully surrounded by his family. His final words spoken to his family were, "Did I do good?" I think that this is both very sweet and quite sad at the same time. It's wonderful that he was able to be around family, and I am certain they assured him that he did in fact do good. I hope in his final moments he really did feel proud of himself, and I hope that while he was slipping away, he knew the answer to his question. In our number 4 spot today, we have Avo Manula. Major Avo Manula was a Finnish soldier who is a pilot and was part of the Air Force. His last day was on May 17th, 1944, and he went out with quite a story. Apparently, he was about to go out for a rehearsal flight, but his usual plane wasn't available, so he told his staff sergeant that he would take his plane. His staff sergeant replied that the plane was a little weird to fly and that you had to know its quirks and that he should just take another plane instead. Well, he didn't listen to this for some reason and responded to the sergeant with the words, "Is Sergeant attempting to teach me how to fly?" And then he went off and took the plane out. It was during this flight that the aircraft went into a spin, and then there was not enough altitude, so he ended up crashing into the lake, where he unfortunately passed away. It is so upsetting that this whole thing most definitely could have been avoided if he just listened to his sergeant that day. In our number 3 spot today, we have Alexander Dakota. Alexander Dakota was a Cree athlete who became the first Indigenous police officer in Canada in 1911 before he joined the Canadian Expeditionary Force in April of 1915. He sadly ended up passing away in battle in 1917. And while his last spoken words weren't recorded, I do have his last words from his final letter to his sister. He wrote, "Well, sis, remember me to Dave and the children. I do hope to see you all before long, if only for a little while. Be good to yourself and don't work too hard. As ever, your loving brother, Alex." As someone with a lot of brothers, this one just really got me straight in the heart, you guys. I'm so glad that his final letter to her got to end on such a sweet note, and I'm sure it is something that she always cherished. In our number 2 spot today, we have Sonata Yukimura. During the Warring States period in Japan, there was one incredibly famous samurai warrior. Sonata Yukimura was an incredible fighter and is best known for being the leading general on the defending side of the siege of Osaka. Sonata is known as a hero and has even been called the #1 hero in Japan. Unfortunately, the summer siege of Osaka Castle was his last and where his haunting words come from. He ended up being mortally struck, and this is when he stumbled out onto the field while removing his helmet. This is when he said the words, "I am Sonata, no doubt an adversary quite worthy of you, but I am exhausted and can fight no longer. Go on, take my head as your trophy." These truly might be some of the coolest last words ever, and that is sincerely a reflection of the type of warrior he was. In our number 1 spot today, we have Jan Zizka. Jan Zizka is a hero in Czech and was lovingly nicknamed One-Eyed Zizka after he lost one and then both of his eyes during battle. He is still regarded as one of the most prominent military leaders despite living so long ago, which certainly is quite a legacy. There was quite a bit of time during his life where he and his men were fighting against King Sigismund, who was the king of Bohemia. Jan didn't end up passing away in battle, however. He actually died of the plague in 1492. After his passing, his men called themselves orphans because they said it felt like they had lost their father. And if that doesn't speak to the kind of leader he was, this next bit definitely will. It has been recorded that his last words were, "Make my skin into drumheads for the Bohemian cause." While kind of gross in thought, I think it definitely shows his commitment and passion in how he wanted to lead his men into battle any way he could, even after passing. Alright guys, that has been our list for today. Thank you so much for checking it out. If you have any last words that you know of from soldiers, please let me know in the comments below, because as sad as these all are, I do really love reading them. I've been your host today, Olivia Kozlowski, and I'll see you next time. Bye!